Greetings, New York Jets fans. This is NFL Chaos with Jeremy. I am Jeremy, and I bring the chaos. And this is this week's Jets State of the Nation. So, what's happened this week? Well, what's everyone talking about? Well, we all know that. It's all about DEEBO Samuel, isn't it? Isn't that funny? We are literally days away from a draft we've been waiting for some time. I mean, the reality is we were talking about this draft even last year, knowing how much draft capital we had and we're going to have going into it. But I don't know, when did you start thinking more heavily in the draft? When we were 0-3? When we lost our 10th game? I don't know, right around November, mid-November. We don't know how long I started doing mock drafts. And while some people are screaming and yelling that every move we make has to be the move that gets us to the Super Bowl or the playoffs, I'm thinking just make mock drafts very uninteresting for me. Challenge me as a YouTube Jets content provider. Challenge me. Make it that I don't have the option to do mock drafts because nobody would watch them or care, because the Jets will be in the race for a playoff spot. When I say in the race for a playoff spot, I am talking about not being mathematically eliminated. The point where maybe in the final 6 games, we could say, if we go 5-1 in the final 6 games, we can make the playoffs. Would it be likely? Maybe not. But would it be different? Would it be the best shape we've been in for quite some time? Yeah. And maybe I should be a little more optimistic about that. Maybe I should be thinking and saying, maybe we'd only need to go 4-2 in our final 6 games, and that would mean a playoff spot, or at least a chance at a playoff spot if some other things happens. But if we went into the final 6 games after 11 games, not forgetting there are 17 games, if we go into the final 6 games thinking 4-2 would get us into the playoffs, wouldn't that be a whole lot different than a lot of years, since 2015 maybe? I don't think anybody would care about mock drafts at that point. I think people would say, hey, what are we doing mock drafts for? We still have a season. So it would also mean that we're at 7, 8 something, let's see, if we need 4 more wins, you'd have to think if you need 11 wins to get to the playoffs based on the AFC this year, we don't even know if that would do it. But if you needed 11, that would put us at 7 wins. So if we were at 7 wins after 11 games, that would mean 7-5. Oh my God. Maybe I'm dreaming. Yeah. I think if we were 7-5, people would dislike. They would hit the down arrow button if I started doing mock drafts. Don't you think? I think. But anyway, everybody's talking about DEEBO. A little bit of a distraction, maybe welcome distraction, right? I mean, we need something to talk about other than the draft. I mean, otherwise this week will take forever. So, will DEEBO become a Jet? Well, it's very hard. I know there are some that talk about his drops. There are some that think, oh, he's greedy for money. But all in all, I think it's very, very fair to say that the majority of Jets world would love to have DEEBO Samuel on our team. DEEBO Samuel, I'm saying his name wrong already. They would love to have him on the team, right? Even if he is not utilizing the running game as much, who cares? I mean, 1,400 yards receiving with Jimmy G throwing him the ball. And I don't want to knock on Jimmy G, but let's be honest, Jimmy G isn't. It's not like we could say, well, he had Tom Brady throwing him the ball. or, he had Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. No, you have to credit DEEBO for those yards. And if you say it's great coaching and brilliant scheme, well, guess what? We watched the rise of this player under LaFleur. We run the same system, the same philosophy. I mean, we have every reason to believe that Samuel will put up great numbers. Now, with Corey Davis and with the rising Elijah Moore and Berrios doing a lot of those kind of gadget plays, we don't need the numbers to be the same. We just need the quality of play and the threat to be the same. So you might not see it in the statistics, but that has nothing to do with what kind of team or offense he will make us, what he'll bring to the offense. And it also, don't forget, because this is key, depth. Do we have any wide receiver who played the entire year without getting hurt? I think Berrios made it to the last game, maybe, or did he may have even missed a couple? I'm not 100% sure. Put it in the chat. But depth, really, in reality, if we were guaranteed no injury, we might be okay with Elijah, Corey Davis, and Berrios, right? But we all know that guys get hurt, and we can't be putting out like we did last year, Tariq Black and DC Montgomery. And a lot of people, you might notice that I haven't mentioned Mims. And that's because, as I said in the past, I'm not relying on Mims, relying on him. It doesn't mean I don't believe in him. It doesn't mean I'm not hoping that Mims is going to be a piece of this puzzle. It just means I think we have to move as if we can't rely on Mims. Because we can't do that a second year in a row. Like, we just can't. We have to treat them like, and I think I forget who said it, but someone said it really eloquently, much more eloquent than I could say it, that we have to treat Mims like a player, like a developmental player, like a guy that he might turn out to be a real gamer. He has a ton of potential, and he might be a great fit for this team and bring us incredible production, or he might never do anything. And then it's up to Mims to come in and earn it, to earn his spot and earn those yards and make it happen. But as far as the draft is concerned, as far as trading and making moves and thinking about the position of wide receiver, we can't factor Mims into the equation, unfortunately. As physically talented as he is, it just wouldn't be the smartest strategy, right? Because you can't keep doing that. You can't keep just putting your eggs in a basket and saying, well, we got this guy, it'll pan out. You can't do that. Last year was very concerning, whether we want to admit it or not. It was. So we have to move as if Mims is not going to be a factor. But let's get back to the DEEBO situation. So what we're hearing is number 10. It'd be interesting if this video came out and the trade already happened. Like, we made the trade and it happened. I would still put this video out. It would be funny. If we trade our 10th pick for DEEBO Samuel, I can only talk for myself. I'm okay with it, obviously. And here's the reasons why I'm okay with it. Yes, I'm a guy who loves Jameson Williams and believes that he's going to be a very special talent. There's no guarantee that Jameson Williams is going to slip to 10. There's no guarantee that Jameson Williams is going to be a special talent, because I'm not going to sit here and say in the 40 years of me being a fan of the Jets and the NFL that I didn't believe a player was going to be great and was dead wrong. I was dead wrong about Vernon Gholston. I was dead wrong about, I thought Saquon Barkley was going to be amazing for the Giants. I thought he was going to be like the way Henry is right now for the Titans. I would have believed that with all my soul. So I've been dead wrong about players and a million more. I mean, most of the times I was excited about almost all the Jets draft picks, most of the time, and ended up very disappointed. So I always have that in the back of my mind. As much as I love players and believe they'll be great, knowing that they could be a complete bust is just a reality, because it's happened so many times. And it's like, as disbelieving as it is, as shocking as it is, because you feel so certain about something. There's no guarantees. Well, DEEBO Samuel is a guarantee. And I say that because I can't think of a time that a player would just stop being productive after the season he had and after the rise he's had over the past 3 years, the way he's gotten better and better. A star is a star, and he's a star. He just is. He's a star NFL receiver. I know this and believe this deeply because I live on the West Coast and watch a lot of 49ers games. And the difference between DEEBO Samuel being healthy and in the game and not in the game is, you can't measure it. Like, the difference is just so tremendous. There's such a different team with him in the game. Now, they had other injuries too. The Niners are much better when their defense is healthy, obviously. But the impact, because they also won a lot of games and their defense played well, even with a lot of injuries, it wasn't even close to the impact of not having DEEBO on the field. He is not somebody you're just going to replace and throw somebody else out there and get the same production to the system. It just doesn't work like that. It's not, and it's just simply not true. He is a special talent. He didn't get those yards because he's a special situation and you could plug and play anybody into that spot. There's no way. It's his athleticism. It's him. So yes, we'd have to pay a big salary. You don't get him on the cheap, but you have the peace of mind to know that you have now taken care of wide receiver. Like, if you don't believe Elijah Moore is going to be a WR1, you can't say we don't have a WR1. DEEBO Samuel is a WR1. Elijah Moore, that doesn't affect his ability to become and develop into a WR1. Maybe the way the contract works out, it's perfect timing. If we can't re-sign DEEBO after a few years of a big contract and we don't feel he lives up to it, or we have to make decisions about who goes and who stays. If Elijah Moore has climbed the mountain and shown to be just as much of a receiver as DEEBO is as far as production, maybe that's one of the tough choices we can make. And if DEEBO doesn't come back, we now have Elijah Moore as our solid, proven number one. And by that time, who knows who we drafted and brought in to be 2, 3, and 4. And that's just thinking of the future. So yes, the length of contract is important as far as guarantee with DEEBO. We want it to be as long as possible with team control, but as short as possible with guaranteed money, right? That's always the toughest part of the negotiation. It's never as much about the amount per season, because JD can manage that. We have a plan for that, as the guaranteed length. How we've been burned in the past. We've been burned by length. That's where we get stuck with dead cap money, and that's where we get stuck and get our hands tied where we can't re-sign guys or we have to let people go. That's with every team. That's where you get into trouble. So keep your eye on that, because that's a big part of a trade like that would be the contract and what the contract looks like. Look for it to be, we can get out of it 3 years, like that. We wouldn't be penalized or hurt if we had to get it out the 4th year. And that's just based on the amount of good young talent we brought in already last year. And just thinking about Becton rebounding like I believe he will, and having to be then paid like top tackle type money. And then Bryce Hall is going to need a contract if he keeps getting better. So if he keeps improving as a player and becomes a very solid cornerback in the league, even if you're not a shutdown number one, not that there's such thing as shutdown anymore, but even if you're a number 2, that's still money. That still costs a lot of money in this league. Cornerbacks, you have to pay them for good production. There's Quinnen Williams. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to have to get paid. Quinnen Williams will have to get paid before that, though, so he'll already be taken care of. But you have to think about the future. You have to think about what these contracts are going to do and how they're going to impact you later when other younger players are rising up. So 3 years guarantee, like if it was 22, 23, and 24, could live with that. Very manageable, very manageable. I think that's what Tyreek Hill would have gotten as far as guarantee. It would have been 3 years. And then we have the decision and have the team power to decide yes or no, you stay, do we keep paying you that much money? The other thing that has to happen for a DEEBO trade, by the way, is DEEBO has to want to come here. So that's a factor too. If Green Bay is showing interest, and I know a lot of people say DEEBO has no power. The player always has power. If the Niners end up trading the player, it's not because they wanted to trade the player. It's because the player has power. The player is the player. The player doesn't have to do things as well or be a great locker room presence. It's messed up, but yeah, you have to think about that as a team. Is this guy really going to be there with us? Because the NFL's not easy, man. Teams don't win unless people are there, heart and soul. That's what you want, heart and soul. If he's unhappy and they don't oblige, is he really going to be heart and soul there? We don't want him if he doesn't want to be with the Jets. We don't want him because he was forced to us and he's unhappy. We want him if there's a contingent on a contract extension and that he's happy and saying, great, I'm happy to go back to LaFleur. I love Coach Saleh. I want to be on the Jets and I want to be part of this. So he does have power because he has power over the Niners in that no team is going to trade for him unless he expresses that mentality and feeling. And nor would we want to. We don't want him unless he wants to be here. Well, if Green Bay tries to trade for him, that's going to be the same condition. Green Bay's not going to want him unless he wants to be there. So he has power in this. And if he comes out and says, the only team I want to go to is Green Bay or this team, and he doesn't name us, there's nothing we could do about it. And if he did that, if he named a list of teams he liked and not us, we should not pursue him. We do not want players who don't want to be here. No one said it better than CJ Mosley. So now let's assume everything worked out well. He wants to be a Jet. He loves Coach Saleh. We bring him in. We sign him to the right kind of contract that JD is happy with. That's great. Let's see if we don't. Okay, let's say if the 49ers stand pat, say we're not going to just dump him for a number 10. We got a proven stud here. We don't win without him. He's too important. We're going to try to make him happy and we're not going to trade him. Or Green Bay just offered a better package, more picks from Green Bay, better package. They got more than 10 from Green Bay because they got a bunch of picks. Next year, the next year's draft, a number one, they're number one this year, some mid-round picks, just a ton that JD doesn't want to do, doesn't value it. It goes too far for what we would have to do to match it. Or the money that he wants. He wants too much money. JD says, no, I can't do it. It doesn't work into our plan. He wants $34 million, 4 years, 5 years guaranteed. I can't do that. I'm going to have guys sign. We got a plan here, and that's going to mess up the whole plan. And that's going to make too many compromises in other spots on the team based on our plan, which we do have. That's the difference from past years and from like Gettleman for the Giants when he was just winging it, right? We actually, and he admitted it, that he didn't have a plan. We actually have a real plan. We don't get to see it because no NFL general manager, other than JD and some very few people, really get to understand and see that plan, the way it maps out. But that plan is a breakdown of bringing in players, quality players, allowing you how are we going to re-sign players, and then what are we going to rely on the draft? Like, how is the draft going to balance into that, into replacing players? These are the number of players we're not going to be able to hold on to, but these are the comp picks, the percentages of the comp picks that hit versus don't, that bring us productive play. It's all planned out. You know why it's planned out? Because I'm talking about it, and who am I? I've never worked as a scout even, but I know just as an administrator of a school that you have a plan. And that plan is a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and an even beyond plan. But there has to be a plan for you to be an effective, good GM. And you can tell just from the last 12 months, if you look at our roster from 12, 13 months ago, whatever it is, to our roster today, you could see it unfolding, and you could see it unfolding very quickly. Well, we don't want just give us a good roster so we can win some games and then worry about what happens after. It doesn't work like that, because if we don't get to the Super Bowl and we didn't plan ahead and we don't have a plan for how it works out, Then we go right down to the dumps. And what did it get us? We're in the same place we've been for 40 years. The plan has to keep us competitive. And then you get your little shots to knock on the door of the Super Bowl, and you hope it works out. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, New England, Green Bay. These are teams that year after year have shots, opportunities to compete. Everyone's saying, well, look at the Bengals, look at the Bengals. Forget about the Bengals. And they haven't proved it yet. Yes, they had a great year. Congratulations. It's inspiring. It gives us hope. Great. That's excellent. It's excellent. But we don't know. Are they one injury away from stinking? Right? Are they all and only about the quarterback? Well, maybe it's a bad example because a lot of teams are all about the quarterback. But if Chase goes down, or are they next year going to get eliminated in the divisional playoff game or even a wild card game? Do we know that they're going to sustain this for years? Or is this they hit on quarterback, so they're going to compete every year for a while for quarterback, and then they're done? Because the teams I'm naming have been beyond through multiple quarterbacks. Well, New England is rising again and scary again and looking like they can be a competitive team again, even after the departure of the greatest quarterback of all time, possibly. It hurts to say that, believe me. Pittsburgh, right? It wasn't just Ben. Your younger folks should look back before Ben. Guess what? Pittsburgh would win with Cordell Stewart at quarterback. Who's he? Exactly. Okay. And Pittsburgh will still compete. You watch. You might have an off year this year, but Pittsburgh's not going to stink for the next 3, 4, 5 years, year after year. They're not. Trust me, they're not going to stink. Unless their coach goes somewhere and the organization changes and the management changes, they're not going anywhere. And the Ravens, they were Flacco, and then before Flacco, 2000, since 2000, the Ravens were competing. Okay, in 2000, they won the Super Bowl. So look how long the Ravens have been a factor, have been relevant. That's what we want. That's how you don't go for broke and just try to snag a Super Bowl, and then it falls apart if you don't. We can't do that. We've waited too long. We need to build an empire. We need to build a team that's going to compete every year. So every year, there's a real chance, eventually, this will start, that every year we have a chance to be in the Super Bowl. Every year. For a long time. So eventually, the odds and everything else will fall in our favor, and we will get our Super Bowl. So, and I'm saying all this because if we don't get DEEBO, because the value's not there for JD, then JD did not fail. It's because he has a plan that one day we will compete year after year after year. Not if we have DEEBO, we can win a Super Bowl, and that's why we never win one, and we're not going to be able to win one without him. Baloney. Yes, he would be great. Yes, he could be a huge step in that direction to rise and be great again as a team. We want him in uniform, yes, but there's a limit. There's a price. To everything. To everything. There's a price. There's a limit. You have to draw a line. It's the key to negotiation. When you go into a negotiation, is to have a line. If you don't already know what your line is, you lost the negotiation. You lost. You have to know what the line is. Otherwise, you can't win. Because you'll keep going up and up until you make a mistake. There's a price point to where for any player. There's a price point. You even have it. If I said the Jets gave every draft pick from this draft and $40 million a year to DEEBO Samuel, 8 years guaranteed, is there anyone that's okay with that? So somewhere between $30 million-ish a year and the number 10 pick, somewhere between that is a point where every one of you wouldn't make the deal. Every one of you. Because none of you would say, yes, every pick. Our number 4 pick, our number 10 pick, our number 35, our number 38, our number 69, our number 107, 111, 146, 169, every one of them. And we're going to pay him $40 million guaranteed for 8 years. right? If there's none of you out there, there's no reasonable person that's going to say, yeah, we should do that for DEEBO Samuel. So there's some point in between giving that much capital and that much of a contract to the number 10 and 30 million a year for a few years. There's some point in between where every one of you drops off and says, no, not worth it. No, not worth it. No, not worth it. There has to be, right? Otherwise, you lost the negotiation because you'll go that far. Why would anybody deal with you for less? So the answer is not really JD lost or didn't do it or failed us if we don't get DEEBO Samuel, because we don't know what the plan was, right? He may have, maybe his limit, his line is not long enough. Maybe he should have gone further. But the only way that that's going to ever be resolved or decided is not by us saying it, because the other team gave this and we could have matched that, because you don't know. None of us have the information of the whole plan. We don't have the information. So there's no way we can say that. The only thing we can do as fans is trust them or not trust them, be in or out. And at the end of the day, we see how many wins we have and how many losses we have. It's the only thing we can do. So it's going to be time. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you invest in a GM. You trust them or you're not, and you wait a certain amount of time and you hope it works out or it doesn't. And part of it is you can't just fire them and let them go after 2 years if you don't see wins. You can't. We'll be in this trap forever. You can't be the Detroit Lions. You can't. You just can't keep going through people, going through coaches, going through this, going through that. You have to give them time. They started with nothing. Gase brought us to the very bottom of the barrel. You can't say, well, I don't have time. We need to win. Well, then I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. Trust me, 40 years. It doesn't work. I've watched them try to do it that way, and it doesn't work. There's models. There's other teams that have the success. Just look at them. It's so simple. Copy them. In your mind, understand. If we made the Super Bowl next year, great. I'm going to be as happy as every one of you. But don't sit there and say that's the standard right now. And that's the level we have to hit for them to be judged as successful or not successful. What we have to do is establish an opportunity to win every year. An opportunity by being in it every year. Baseball, good example, St. Louis Cardinals. Great example. Year after year after year. Sometimes they have an off year, sometimes they have a good year, but they're in it. You never know when the Cardinals are going to have a year where they win with the World Series, because they're just in it. My whole life, it feels, just always in it. Last 20 years for sure, always has a chance to compete going into the season. And what happens? Eventually, it happens. It comes to fruition. You start winning. You start getting some championships. That's how it happens. So this is what we need to do. We need to trust JD, because for the first time, if you look at the evidence, the accumulation of draft picks, the way the roster is being built, not all our money into one player, but respecting the value of draft capital and finding solid players, good players to come in for reasonable amounts of money, decent contracts that allow us to eventually pay the megastars the big money, but not overpaying for just good players. Not going and getting people we think are megastars and put them on top of nothing. Put them on top of horrible structure where the core is not built yet. It doesn't work. Putting a few superstars. How many can you pay? Even if you have 60 million in cap, what does that get you? 2 players, 2 superstars? Putting 2 superstars on top of shit does nothing. It does nothing. Maybe it gets you some more wins, but it doesn't get you a Super Bowl ring. Bringing in guys like Whitehead, CJ Reed, bringing in Lincoln Tomlinson, build the core, right? Now, DEEBO, I don't think it's too soon to grab him if the value is there because he's special. And you don't always get an opportunity to get a guy like that. We happen to have the capital, both draft and money, the cap flexibility. We happen to have and be one of the few teams that if the San Francisco Niners have to deal him, that have the ability to obtain him. And that's somebody I agree you go for, but with a limit. Understanding the value and going into that negotiation with that in mind. That's what has to happen. That's how it has to happen, which means prepare yourselves if we don't get them. And it's okay. Then we go back to the plan. Whether it's Drake London or Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams, we go back to the plan. There's a plan. Just be patient. Sometimes that plan gets interrupted by opportunity. And because our plan is so solid, you can see already we're one of the teams that can jump on that opportunity because of our general manager and the job he's doing. Also, I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't mention that Connor Hughes is a coward. He is a fidgety little weasel that's not man enough to apologize for what he said about Mekhi Becton. He continues to lie and stand by his lie. Mekhi Becton, in case you don't know, has every right to not be at these voluntary workouts, not only because they're voluntary, but because he is choosing his future child and the woman that's going to carry that child for him over voluntary workouts that are going to do nothing for him. He's on a plan. He's rehabbing and rebuilding with a nutritionist and a trainer, and he's on a plan. And if he went to if he would have come in for those workouts, they weren't going to teeter off of that plan. He was going to be doing the same exact workouts, but he's staying in the same state as somebody who's carrying his baby 37 weeks. So the baby can come at any time. Okay. So anybody who says he has no excuse, but McGovern, who just had the baby, so we know the baby is healthy and the wife is healthy, but he wants to be with them. And believe me, I support him 100%. I'm not going against him. But to say that wanting to be with the 37-week pregnant partner is not an excuse, but wanting to be with your baby because you want to hang out with your baby when it was born, which is totally understandable. I agree with it. I think McGovern should be with his baby. But to say there's a difference is insanity to me. To say I accept one excuse but not the other, why? What if she had sharp pains? We don't know who they live with and who's there to support them. Or maybe even if there was people, he wants to be there if something happens. Maybe this is just bigger than football, especially voluntary workouts where he's not going to be doing anything different. He's still going to be carrying that heavy weight on his shoulders, walking and rebuilding his knee. He's going to be doing all that stuff anyway. Well, this is it, my final episode of this show before the draft. I'll be coming back, obviously, with a reaction next week, and I'll see all of you live. Thank you for watching. Everybody be good. Enjoy the draft. Trust in JD.